Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well. So I just saw Us. Let's talk about it. Us is directed by Jordan Peele and stars Lupita Nyong'o, Winston Duke, Elizabeth Moss, and Tim Heidecker. And going into this film, I was super excited because I absolutely love Get Out, and I was super excited going into Us. But I have to say, when I was walking out of the cinema and I saw this with my friends, I was slightly disappointed. I initially thought this is a really great film. It's definitely more horror filled in the sense that Get Out was much more of a social commentary film than it was a horror film, in my opinion. I know this because I can't handle horror films. I'm terrible when it comes to them. I get so scared. I couldn't even watch Harry Potter as a child without getting really, really scared of the Dementors. So horror really is not my genre at all. But when I was watching Get Out, I didn't really get that sense, you know. I was very much comfortable with watching it. There were a few jump scares, but nothing really terrified me in any level. And so watching Us is definitely far more horror, you know, horror filled. And I do think it may have been a response to people's criticism of Get Out, saying that it's not quite something that meets the horror tropes and belongs in the horror genre, which I had no problem with, but some people may have. So initially with this film, I definitely thought, okay, this is more of a traditional horror film. It does have layers to it, and there's definitely an interesting twist at the end, which I kind of saw coming, but we'll kind of get to that. But it definitely fits the genre more than Get Out did. But then I spent more time really considering this film and really thinking about it. And I was talking with my friends, and I went online when I got home, and it's grown on me more and more that I think about it. And I think this film is so full of depth and layers. There's so many different theories for what the overall meaning of the film is. I think you can appreciate the film as is without having to dive into all of the different theories, but I think that definitely adds to the film and really added to my enjoyment of it. I'm very much looking forward to seeing it again, not on my own because, like I said, I'm not a horror person. But as soon as I can drag someone along, I will definitely do that, because I definitely think that it's a film that warrants a second, even third viewing, and you will get so much out of it in those viewings. So with that said, we're going to talk about the good, we're going to talk about some of the bad, and then we're going to be rating this film today. I'm not going to go into any spoilers in this review. This is just going to be my thoughts on the film overall, but I am planning on filming a theories and explanation video after this, so hopefully I'll be able to just spout out all of the thoughts that I have surrounding this film, and some spoilers will be in that video but not in this one. So with that said, let's get into some of the good stuff. I would be remiss if I did not just start off by saying that Lupita Nyong'o is a powerhouse in this film. She just blows everyone out of the water. Like, I've looked at the cast going into this, and I was like, I'm really excited. I love Winston Duke. He was great in Black Panther. He didn't have much to do, but he definitely had a great presence. They were both in Black Panther, come to think of it. But here, this is one of the first performances since 12 Years a Slave, which Lupita won the Best Supporting Actress Oscar for, where she really gets a chance to shine. And I think she's just so spectacular. She has such range here, from the cool, breezy, yet deeply paranoid Adelaide to the calm, collected, and evil Red. I think those two characters are so juxtaposed against each other, and yet Lupita's able to bring them to life in such an effective and just brilliant way, especially when it comes to Red, who is the evil version of Adelaide, who we meet in the film. And it's just absolutely amazing. You would not think that it's the same person on screen. It's incredible to see the transformation. And they often act against, well, she often acts with herself. So when she's speaking to this other character, you don't feel like it's the same person. It just becomes two different people. And I know that this isn't new, because there are films where actors play two different characters, but here the characters are so different and so fundamentally twisted in different ways that it's such a convincing performance. It's brilliant. And I do think that a lot of people have been calling her the Toni Collette of this year, where she has an amazing performance and will probably be ignored by the Academy. I hope it won't. I do think that Jordan Peele does have some favour in the Academy after winning for Best Screenplay, Original Screenplay, for Get Out. So hopefully it will be recognised, and it does have a lot of buzz around it, more so than usual horror films do. So hopefully we'll get recognition, because she's fantastic in this film and drives it forward without a doubt. I also really enjoyed the performance of Shahidi Wright, who plays the teenage daughter. She is also able to juxtapose the two characters brilliantly, with the teenage daughter being kind of blasé and typical teenager, obsessed with her phone and kind of not really interested in anything, whereas the evil version of her is very sinister, just deeply disturbing, and she does it so well when they're interacting with each other. Again, you get the sense that they are two different people. Evan Alex, who portrays the younger brother, is also excellent in this film. His performance is much more subtle. At the beginning, I didn't quite understand what this character was about and why he was the way that he was, but then it starts to make sense when you think about the film in a deeper level. And I mean, that goes with a lot of the things that happen in this film, but in particular with that character. So I very much appreciate his performance there. Winston Duke, I'm also a huge fan of, but I will say that while he did a good job in terms of his acting, the character that he was portraying was not my favorite. He just seemed to be so stupid, so annoyingly dumb and useless. There were lots of times in the film where, you know, he gets injured and he's kind of just pushing along. There are times when he like abandons his family and doesn't really help out much. It's really bizarre to me, but I don't know if there's like a commentary there. I haven't quite figured that one out yet. But yeah, he just seems like a very useless character. He has a lot of funny moments, but some of those funny moments tend to take away from the suspenseful moments. Like there'll be a moment where it's very calm and they're trying to soak in the madness that is going on in their community, in their neighborhood. And then all of a sudden he'll be cracking a joke, or something around him will be really, really funny. And whilst the moment is funny, it's kind of disturbing the tone and the ability for the audience to just let that moment sink in. The score of this film is absolutely phenomenal. I remember when I saw Get Out, and one of the first songs that plays in that film is this song that's sung in Swahili, and I happen to know Swahili. So I knew that the lyrics were Kimbia, meaning run, like run away. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, like all of the different layers of this film start to become more prominent, even in the music. I'm not fully aware of the lyrics of the song used here, but I will say that it definitely helps set the tempo of the film at the very beginning. And there's this striking sequence with just a bunch of rabbits, and that plays into the film. But the music is definitely meaningful. Everything that's been included here has been deliberately included, and everything has just been thought through so well. The same can be said for the cinematography and the iconography of this film as well. There are certain set pieces or certain props that are reminiscent of pop culture references or allude to certain themes in the film, and the way that the film looks is just so striking. And what's really exciting about this film is that we're starting to see what Jordan Peele's vision of the horror genre looks like. There are certain aspects to this film that are definitely reminiscent of Get Out, but then there are also some differences there. Inspiration for this film coming from the Twilight Zone episode, I think it's Mirror Image, and that's definitely reflected in the film itself. And you also have iconic scenes, mostly involving Lupita, that very much reminded me of Chris from Get Out, and you know, the teacup sequence that became iconic just seemingly overnight. It's just this very defined vision that he has, where you have two completely different stories and yet they feel like they're coming from the same mind, and they definitely feel like they have a powerful presence in the scope of the horror genre. So for the most part, I think this film is brilliantly written and just amazingly executed and acted. I really enjoyed the performance of all of the Wilson clan. I have to say, if there were some gripes that I had with this film, it would be, firstly, the Tyler family, they're definitely more affluent than the Wilsons, but they also seem more detached, and they don't really have a true connection as a family. And that plays into some of the themes in the film, but I would say that just their depiction kind of brought the film down a little bit for me. Elisabeth Moss's character was very stereotypical, self-obsessed mum who regrets having kids when she did, because she could have ended up a movie star. She literally says this in the film. And whilst it plays into, again, the overall themes of the film, and everything is very deliberate here, I just didn't like her as a character, and I didn't really think that Elisabeth Moss's performance shone. There's also an extended sequence that happens in the Tyler household, which is basically governed by Ophelia, which is this film's version of Alexa. It's at this point of the film where things change and you really start to realize the extent of the threat that's posed by these doppelgangers. But it's also at this point that I kind of started to waver in interest, because it did fall into the typical horror tropes and slasher film tropes. I felt that while there's some very funny sequences involved here, there wasn't anything particularly unique that stood out to me at this very point in time. I wasn't hugely interested in that section of the film. But for the most part, Jordan Peele has proven that he's very good at leaning into horror tropes when he wants to, and subverting them when he wants to as well. So there are several times throughout this film where you think there's going to be a jump scare, or you think something's going to happen and actually nothing does, or when you least expect it, something does happen. And that for me kind of keeps you on your toes a bit more, because you're always expecting the unexpected, and as a result it sparks some new life into the horror genre. I think for the most part he definitely succeeds in doing that. It's just a case of the middle part where you do have the chasing happening that I think I kind of lost a little bit of interest then. And lastly, when it comes to this film, there are some logical inconsistencies. Some things just don't make sense. And initially, like I said, when I walked out of it, this is what my mind was preoccupied with, the kind of logistical technicalities, like how did the tethered get hold of their red jumpsuits, and the scissors and the one glove? Like, what does that all mean? How did they do this? How did they do that? But then I kind of took a step back and considered this film in the same way that I would think about a Black Mirror episode. And Black Mirror, fittingly enough, was inspired by The Twilight Zone, much like this film. So you have these premises where certain realities exist in each episode, and you just have to take them at face value. And you could spend all your time throughout watching the Black Mirror episodes thinking, how does this happen? Why does this happen? This wouldn't work in real life. But you wouldn't be fully absorbing the message of the episode. You wouldn't really be engaging with the narrative that the creators are trying to engage with you. So I would say that when it comes to this film, when you take a step back and you kind of accept the reality that exists, then you start to really let yourself get absorbed into the message and the overall themes of the film and what Jordan Peele was trying to say with it. And I don't think that these messages are exactly the same as the ones in Get Out. I do think Get Out was much more overt with the messages it had to say, and I think that's why I immediately reacted positively to that film and really engaged with that film. Whereas this one, and initially I was like, oh, you know, this is great, but it's not what I wanted. But then you take a step back and you think about it, and little things that you may have missed just start to make sense and start to come together. So overall, this is the first film of 2019 that's really got me thinking and theorizing, and I absolutely love that about this film. Initially, when I walked out of the cinema, I was definitely somewhat disappointed because I was expecting a Get Out 2.0, when really that wasn't the approach that I should have gone in with. I very much needed to see it as its own entity and a film in its own right, separate from the Get Out world. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm used to crossovers and multiverses and everything connecting, but this is its own thing. And whilst it does have things to say, they are not as overt as Get Out was. And for better or for worse, it definitely creates a conversation around the film that I'm really, really having a fun time partaking in. So overall, I'm going to give Us an 8.5 out of 10. I really had an amazing time with this one. It's definitely something I'm going to be watching again to see what else I can get out of it. But in the meantime, you guys can let me know what you thought of the film down in the comments below. Please be sure to like this video if you had a fun time chatting with me, and subscribe to my channel if you like to catch some future videos. I'm going to be posting a follow-up just talking about all the clues in the film and the theories surrounding it, so you can look forward to that. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!